It's the good life, to be free and explore the unknown. Like the heartache, when you learn you must face them alone. Please remember, I still want you, and in case you wonder why, well, just wake up.
Good morning, everyone. I think we'll get started in a couple of moments, so please take your seat. Well, it gives me a great pleasure to welcome you to the inaugural joint MSC ASC event today. I'm Sarah Bladen, the Global Communications and Marketing Director with the MSC. We have a full agenda today, so I will get into it very quickly. Our forum today is themed around growing consumer demand and trust, and I'll show you a little bit of the agenda that we'll be running through this morning. We'll be kicking off with speakers from the MSC and ASC. Nicolas Guichou and Esther Luton will speak through us on some commercial highlights around developments with the MSC and ASC programs. And Nicola will also speak to some insights we can share around growing consumer demand for certified, sustainable and responsible seafood. We will then pass across to Jacqui Macalister with IKEA, who is going to share the IKEA's experience and journey and their significant commitment to MSC and ASC certified seafood. Following that, we will have Ed Gillespie, who is our moderator for our panel discussion. Ed will also speak to his experience as a change agent for the last couple of decades, working on business transformation and corporate sustainability with a number of actors from Unilever to SAB Miller. And then we have an opportunity to have a panel discussion where we have a number of guests with us today. Agathe Grossmith with Carrefour Group. Jacqui will also join us again on the panel, and Carolyn Meledo, who joins us from Hilton Worldwide. Three business leaders who are driving real change in terms of supporting sustainability and responsible seafood. We also are joined by the CEO of MSC, Rupert Howes, and Chris Ninnis, the Chief Executive at ASC, will also join us on the panel. And we will be closing our session at 11:15. I know many of you have other appointments and engagements in the expo, so we will look to have a good close at that time. I just wanted to let you know that we are broadcasting the event live on MSC's YouTube channel. So if you have partners, colleagues, friends who'd like to follow us, please do let them know. The Wi-Fi details are there if you want to get online. We have a hashtag here where you can join in the conversation on Twitter. And for our panel discussion, we would invite you to submit questions through that channel, which can also be introduced to panelists, and Ed can speak to those points. I would ask you, though, to please keep your mobiles on silent throughout the forum. And with that, I'd like to hand over to our first speaker, Esther Luton with the ASC. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Welcome. I'm really excited to see such a huge turnout this early in the morning, so welcome all. My name is Esther Luton. I work for the ASC, the Aquaculture Stewardship Council, and today we are here together with MSC to give you an update on where we are with the program, but more importantly, to have a dialogue with you on consumers and how to build trust. Just to frame this discussion, I decided to include this slide, and it's basically telling us that we don't need to be afraid that there's no demand for seafood. The seafood we need is much more than the seafood we can produce globally. So this slide is also telling us that there will be increasing pressure on nature, biodiversity, and social responsibility issues. So this is basically the reason for us to be here and to talk to you where we are in our programs, but also to talk with you on how we can increasingly engage consumers globally in the discussion to make a difference and to look for seafood that is actually taking care of the environment, of nature, of water, and of people. So if we scale it down a bit, and if we go back to the ASC program, I included the chart at the top right corner because it does show the rapid growth that we have been seeing in our program. When we were here last year, we had half the number of labeled products that we have today. So today we are with 5,000 products approved, available in the market globally in 57 countries. And clearly the IKEA commitment to start selling ASC certified salmon in over 40 countries helped a bit. But we also see sea brands like Fishmonk and Queens who started to bring labeled products into new markets like China, the Philippines and New Zealand. So we see that companies work with us to make this choice for certified seafood simple. What we see as well, with the increase in growth of the program in terms of labeled products, we see companies that increasingly give commitments to work with our program. And we have all seen the first slide with the two happy faces. That's a Spar store in Austria. They were actually the first to have chain of custody certification at their fresh fish counter, selling both ASC and MSC labeled products. We have a company like the Colruyt Group here in Belgium, who's now selling 60% of their farmed seafood with the ASC label on their products. So we have Coles in Australia, who is committed to have ASC certified salmon at all their wet fish counters. Over 700 delis are now selling certified responsibly farmed seafood from Australia at the wet fish counter. The list is long. I can tell you about Lidl, who has a huge commitment in Germany. I can tell you about Royal Caribbean, who came up and said, okay, we want to work with you guys, MSC and ASC. So for us, it has been an increasingly phenomenal journey over the last year. And I will only show you one slide on such a commitment because it's the most recent one. Aeon, the Japanese retailer, has a strong commitment. And only last week, they celebrated proudly with their Chilean coho salmon supplier that they have their 4th ASC certified species in over 1,200 stores. So this is what is happening. And it's not only happening in Germany and in the Netherlands, but it's increasingly happening in other markets as well. And what we also see is that with this growth, partners increasingly ask us, what can we tell our consumers? How can we explain what it is about? How can we explain them what is certified seafood? What is responsibly farmed seafood? And we see companies picking up that challenge themselves. We had Albert Heijn, a Dutch retailer in the Netherlands, who organized a very big Christmas festival. And together with their seafood suppliers, with ASC and with MSC, we had 40,000 female ladies coming over to this Christmas festival, and we explained to them what it's all about. Those are the things that we want to do increasingly. It can be big, it can be small, it can be a nice recipe card at a wet fish counter, or it can be a campaign that we run ourselves together with partners in countries like the Netherlands and Belgium. So we are there to work with you on those kind of things, and that's why we also launched a marketing toolkit yesterday available that is for you at your disposal to design your own materials and to work with us on the messaging towards consumers. As mentioned, it's not only Northwest Europe, and we are really happy to see, for instance, the Grand Hyatt in Singapore, on their menus in the restaurants, they show the logo and they tell their customers what it's all about. And again, we cannot do it on ourselves. We do this together in those emerging markets with partners. So there's a series of sustainable seafood festivals that is led by WWF. Together with them, we start building awareness in those markets as well. Now back to the farm, because it always looks glossy at the consumer end. But in the end, it's about the farms that take the responsibility to show that they meet the requirements. And again, you can see in the chart a good increase in terms of farms participating in our program. In the chart at the top right corner, you can easily see that Pangasius and Tilapia, the first two species operational in the program, are still there, but we see huge increase in the number of salmon farms that are participating in the program, and there's a solid increase in shrimp farms available as well. So in total, there's now 800,000 tons of certified farmed seafood available. And of course, that's only the growth that the MSC had, but still, this is happening in 3.5 year time. So we see a good growth in terms of new farms coming into the program. So in the chart at the bottom, you can see that for salmon and shrimp, there is more to come. And also for tilapia and pangasius, we still see new companies entering the program. And we are also aware that there are increasingly efforts by often importers together with processors to work with producers, smaller producers as well, to get them on board of the program. And whether that's pangasius in Vietnam, or whether that's shrimp from Ecuador, where there's a big aquaculture improvement project going on as well, that is the pipeline that needs to be filled, because that is where we bring the real change at the farm level. If you look at where you can find those farms, and I could have displayed the list of all the companies participating in the program, the farms, but you know, the list would be unreadable. So I made a sort of summary, species by country, and then you can easily see that, of course, there's lots of salmon coming from Norway. And we have seen here at the show Marine Harvest, but also Norway Royal Salmon, Salmer, Leroy, taking their activity in working with the program. But we also see Vietnam. We see many pangasius producers still trying to bring their products, you know, responsibly farmed to consumers in Europe and in the US. There's interest in Chile, clearly from the salmon producers as well. You saw the salmon being sold now in Japan. Indonesia, a good interest there for tilapia, and hopefully increasingly for shrimp as well. So you can see where we are, and to be honest, we are also very proud that over the last year, there were 9 new countries of production. And then it sounds small, but we are really happy that we have the first German trout farm certified as part of the program. We have a Polish tilapia farm, Global Fish, who grows their tilapia in a recirculation system that is certified. And we are also very happy that now we have the first 3, and of course, in the scale of China, 3 is modest, but there are 3 tilapia farms from Hainan who took the responsibility and are now able to supply the market with certified seafood. Shrimp from India, and as we all know, shrimp from India is the growing market, and from the US, certified oysters by Taylor Shellfish. So for us, it's great to see this expansion to Japan, and with the new farms in assessment, we see Rio coming up. So we have Brazilian producers in the program, Spanish producers, and hopefully salmon from Iceland soon as well. So it looks good, but there's still a lot to do. And that is not only about making the program accessible towards the producers and working with them to apply the standards in their realities, but it's also about telling the messages to the end consumer. And I, on purpose, included this slide. It shows the harvest of a pangasius farm in Vietnam. And I'm fully aware that the product on the market, especially in Europe, is having a tough time. But I think it's worth mentioning that those producers invest in improving their water inlet system. They invest in the embankments of their ponds. They take care of water treatment now, in sludge treatment. And through that, they simply improve their practices. And what we see happening in Vietnam, it's not only about those environmental impacts, but clearly the social part that we have in our program as well. So we see lots of better working conditions from farmers, and even more importantly, if you are a farmer that lives around the Pangasius farm and the water discharge is not properly functioning, and you try to grow your agriculture products or whatsoever, you can be disturbed. But those producers have invested in relationships with the community simply because they want to become ASC certified. This is the last slide of my presentation. It shows a salmon farm, and you see the difference, of course, between the salmon farm and the Pangasius farm. And there is a big difference in terms of the maturity of the sector. But also for those salmon producers, we see that they have to invest in practices, water quality, monitoring of the sediment. They have to protect the seals and the birds by implementing better nets, better fences, and they have to improve in their netting systems to avoid copper release. So this is what it is about. And clearly, lots of the stories are technical, and we hope to work increasingly with you to get the message across to consumers globally. So thank you for your attention.
Good morning, bonjour. So 40 fisheries were certified over the last 12 months. Amongst them, hake in Cornwall, prawns in Western Australia, or scallops in China. But one of them was particularly iconic. It's the Newfoundland three-piece cod in Canada. As I'm sure many of you are aware, the collapse of that fishery 20 years ago sent an alarm bell to the global seafood industry and its supply chain. Suddenly, the world realized that wild fish resource is not unlimited, and that careful management of fisheries needed to ensure availability of wild fish for the future. So it took 20 years for the Newfoundland cod to recover. But it's in its biggest part in the north, the iconic northern cod, it will still take a few more years. Nevertheless, in the three-piece region in the south of Newfoundland, the three-piece cod fishery managed to get its certification. This is good news, and nothing's perfect yet with that fisheries. They still have some conditions to meet to maintain the certificate, but this shows that our industry is fortunate enough to be able to influence its destiny, and that almost nothing is irreversible if you do the right thing. So in addition of the 40 new fisheries that were certified this year, we had 33 fisheries that were recertified. One important role of a certification system is to ensure that, to verify that an operation, a fishery in our case, performs at a certain level, and that over time that level of performance is maintained or improved. So in the case of the South African hake, we've seen that they've reduced the seabird mortality by 90% by improving the way they fish, but also that they reduced by 99% the death of albatross, which is an endangered species. So good environmental improvement. But also on the economic side, it is estimated that certification accounts for 35% of the economic value of the fishery, and that it contributed to prevent the loss of up to 12,000 jobs, and also contributed to expand the export market by $200 million. So a great example of the long-term benefit of certification and why a recertification is an important aspect of the program. Further north in Spain, in the north of Spain, we welcome the first octopus fishery in the world to be certified. It's a very small scale fishery, artisanal one, with minimum impact on seabed and minimum bycatch. this certification triggers a lot of interest. They had inquiries from the US, from Japan, from Switzerland, and from Brazil, and they just told us that they concluded the first contract that gave them a 20% premium. So a great way to reward small-scale fisheries efforts to improve their practices. A growing activity at the MSC is what we call project pre-assessment. We realized over time that most of the improvement made at fisheries level are done before certification. So we developed those projects to encourage a greater number of fisheries to use the MSC standard to improve their practices. Those project pre-assessments are open to any fisheries, any size. They cover some entire region or sometimes a country. But it particularly fits for small-scale fisheries, as one of our colleagues mentioned that it reduced to 2 to 5 times the cost of pre-assessments because of the synergies that are created. So we now have 5 projects up and running in UK and Western Australia. They were the first one, but more recently in the Mediterranean, in France and Spain, what we call Project Medfish. We have one also in the Dongchen province and in China, and in the Miyagi prefecture in Japan. Those projects usually receive very strong support from local stakeholders and get also a lot of media attention. On the commercial front, we celebrated this year the 20,000th product. It's this Paella product under the brand of German retailers Netto. This is a ready meal product. It's a segment that actually is growing quite a lot. We also have seen one of the first seafood pizza carrying the MSC logo. So a new trend, let's say. When it comes to commercial commitments, I won't talk about IKEA or Carrefour or Hilton. They will talk to you much better about their commitment than me during the panel. So I would like to highlight some of those great commitment that we've seen in the last 12 months. One of them is Lidl. From 1st of January 2017 onwards, Lidl will only sell MSC and ASC certified seafood in Germany for their own brand, fresh and frozen. Lidl will also expand their offer of MSC ASC certified limited time promotional product with the goal of introducing them permanently on shelf in the future. Similar commitments are made in Netherlands, Sweden, Denmark, and Switzerland, and we expect other countries to follow soon. These new commitments comes after Lidl took the leadership 10 years ago when they introduced their first product. Lidl's move, so not the first at the time, had a massive impact on the rest of the retail sector in Germany and beyond. Thanks to them, seafood sustainability became one of the top agenda across Occidental retailers. And for having worked for the MSC for quite some time, I don't think any retailer had such a big impact on the MSC over the years. A bit further south in Australia, John West, which is the largest seafood brand in the country with $250 million retail sales, announced that they would work only with mainly with MSC certified tuna from the P&A regions in collaboration with Pacifico. 59 out of the 61 products in their range is now MSC labeled. Their commitment is really the first major move of its kind globally, because we haven't seen such such a big amplitude in terms of commitment on tuna and use of the MSC label. I mean, the figures are really impressive. 1 million tuna cans are sold every year, or it will be sold in 2016 with the logo. 59% of all Austrian households purchase John West tuna. And they run a very, very popular and a bit provocative campaign, I have to say, to announce their commitment, something that we're not very used to in the seafood sector. So I invite you to have a look on the web. In the US, the second largest US broadline distributor, US Foods, get all the US sites certified, 67 of them. I mean, the figures also here impressive, 250,000 clients, and they will introduce exclusive lines of MSC labeled products and educate their customers and work with MSC to also better communicate these engagements to their customers and the customers of their customers, to the final consumers. In China, the MSC is making inroad in this country. We've hosted for the second year in a row the Sustainable Seafood Week in August every year. We have double participation every year. It's taking place in main retail store in the country and in international hotel chains. We also work with Alibaba, Tmall, the e-commerce company, which is a fast-growing sector in China, and we've had for the first time a promotion jointly with them on MSC label product in February, and the growth was fantastic. We had about 350% growth compared to the same period the year before for the same product. And we went from 10 to 50 products over the past 50 months in China, so we expect, you know, even more further growth in the future. So in terms of traceability, as you may know, the MSC runs a DNA test every 2 years, which this year again proved the strengths of our chain of custody. More than 99% of all the products that were tested are correctly labeled. This data forms a central pillar in our global traceability consumer campaign. And you may have seen this new animation and campaign that we ran a few weeks ago. We had about over 1 million views of that animation, and also features in national media in several countries. So we realize that really traceability is one of the elements of trust, and that we are regularly encouraged by both our brand partners, but also consumer insights to talk more about that important aspects of our eco-labeling program. So focusing on consumer, as you know, that's the theme of the day. Consumers marketing continues to be a key ingredient of our eco-labeling program, and is really designed to support our partners in communicating the sustainable seafood commitment. To support this, we also need to better understand consumers' behavior and what they think about sustainable seafood. So every 2 years, we run the largest seafood consumer perception study of its type. And this year, we have increased the number of countries from 15 to 21, and we have interviewed more than 16,000 individuals across those 21 countries. So I'll just give you a sneak preview of that study. And first question was, what do consumers say about sustainability and seafood? Over 2/3 of seafood consumers have a good understanding of the term sustainable on product. They are prepared to make a change to more sustainable products and believe that sustainable sourced seafood will contribute to saving the oceans. Here we ask them who they think contribute the most to protecting the oceans. So you will see here that NGOs and scientists come first on the left-hand side, and that companies and retailers come last. Sorry for you if you're in the audience. So this is where we see the MSC as an independent science-based NGO contributing to the trust of the brands and retailers that we work with. Again, around 2/3 of consumers believe that sustainability claims need to be independently verified and that eco-labels raise the trust in the brand. And we also have seen recent data from Nielsen's that appears to verify this. The latest analysis globally suggests that FMCG brands that use claims on their products have grown 4% quicker than ones that don't. So one of the first insights in terms of how consumers translate their belief into purchase. That's all great for me to give a view, all these data and theory. But what we want to do now is to bring seafood consumers into the room. The research agency Watch Me Think asked seafood consumers from around the world to record their own views about seafood and sustainability in their own homes and local store. So please listen to them.
Hi, I'm Lena.
Hallo, hier ist Ulrika.
私の名前は谷美香。
Hi, I'm Jennifer.
Hi everyone, Matt Whiskey.
Basically, to me, sustainable means that it's not overfished.
Eben insbesondere Fisch- und Meerestiere, es sind ja nicht nur Fische, auch auf lange Sicht immer noch kaufen kann.
It's improving fish stocks so that everyone can enjoy fish in the long term.
もしも家族の好きな魚がある日から突然買えなくなったらとても困るし。
It's good for the environment, good for the product, good for the fish.
I always look out for price because I'm on a tight budget.
Natürlich auch auf den Geschmack an. Aber schön ist natürlich, wenn dieses Zeichen da ist. Ich bin jetzt zwar nicht der eine Öko-Freak oder so, aber dennoch versuche ich darauf zu achten, die Natur nicht noch weiter zu schädigen und greife dann.
We do look at where the food comes from.
Fresh caught would be most important, and then sustainable would be second.
安全性、それから鮮度、それから価格というような順番になるかと思います。
I like that it's verified by an independent organization like the MSC.
I'm just looking at all the different tuna options, and I think that this one might be the best. The albacore right here. And this has the MSC label on it. We eat a lot of tuna in our house.
I have to say, the logo does offer a certain amount of reassurance.
Irgendwelchen Firmen benutzt wird, sondern eben diese Firmen.
And so they take care for the environment, and they're not, like pirates or shonky fishermen.
It just is kind of a nice comfort seeing that on the seafood I buy and knowing where it's coming from.
MSC エコラベル商品を買うことで食の安全に対する安心感があります。
It's just like a little check mark with a little fish, so I know this is checked, this is certified.
Then that's my contribution to trying to make a better choice.
Ansonsten ist es für mich wichtig, dass halt auch auf die Natur geachtet
And I always feel better knowing that the fish will still be around for my kids.
I think over the last 5 years, people are more aware of where food comes from.
So if it's not sustainable, then those options of how to prepare the meal simply won't be there.
I think it's important to know that the fish are going to be here for my children and for the future and for grandchildren.
I'd always go for the one that's got this label.
All right, thank you very much. I would like now to welcome someone who works for a company that is very close to consumers and knows very well consumers around the world. So please welcome Jacqui Macalister from IKEA. Thank you.
Right, good morning, everybody. There we go. So I'm Jacqui Macalister, and I've been working at IKEA Food for about a year now. I was brought in to lead their work on health and sustainability. And you may be able to hear from my accent that I'm not really from around here. I'm actually from a place called New Zealand, which is a long way away from here. In fact, you probably couldn't get any further away. And actually, I'm from the South Island, and not far from me in the South Island, a few hours south, is a place called Stewart Island. And at Stewart Island, there are some more islands surrounding it, which is the home of the mutton bird. Now, mutton birds are sooty shearwaters, and they're the longest migrating bird in the world. Their parents breed chicks in burrows in the ground, and then they feed them until they're so fat that they can't get out and fly off north as far as Alaska. Mutton birds are sustainably harvested by local Maori tribes, and this is a right which is passed down from generation to generation. So they're not advertised, they're not branded, you don't find them in supermarkets or on restaurant menus. But every May, for as long as I can remember, gathered together with friends and family, we ate these salty, oily birds that taste like mutton straight off the barbecue. Now, most of us have at least one story like this, whether it's oysters, a Big Mac, or our favorite tomato sauce. Food becomes important to us because of the taste and the experiences and the story around it. And it's this power and this total package that we should keep in mind as we engage our customers around food sustainability. So, IKEA Food is putting health and sustainability into the heart of its business model. And so today I want to share with you this new path we're taking and why. And I want to start first with talking about purpose, because if we're talking today about consumer demand and trust, it helps to anchor it in what your mission is as a business. Ingvar Kamprad, he founded IKEA in 1958 at a time when furniture was really a luxury that was available only to the elite who could afford it. And he made well-designed, functional furniture at a price affordable to as many people as possible. He defined the purpose of IKEA to create a better everyday life for the many people. The aim of our sustainability strategy, People and Planet Positive, really builds on this. We want our business to have a positive impact on the world. And this translates into a set of commitments that guide our actions. We want to be energy independent. We want to produce more renewable energy than we use. And so we're investing $1 billion into wind farms and solar panels and climate action by 2020. We want to become forest positive. And today we've helped to certify 35 million hectares of forestry. That's an area roughly the size of Germany. And we want to help our customers lead healthy and sustainable lives by switching only to LED light bulbs, by selling solar panels in our stores, and by making healthy and sustainable eating easy and affordable. So, we're for the many people. We have commitments and actions that stand to support that. And the ultimate payoff in all of this is we create sustainable value for society, and we're seen as a company that people can trust. But it takes time, and you have to have a long-term view on this. And admittedly, we're not there yet on sustainability. Our customers see us as functional and affordable, but they don't always see us as sustainable. Okay, when most people think of IKEA, they think of furniture, but we're also a global food business. We operate in around 48 countries. We have sales of almost 1.8 billion euros, and we have around 640 million customers a year. Our restaurant, our bistro at our Swedish food market have always played an important role in the customer experience at IKEA. But we felt that we weren't keeping pace with the changes that we saw happening rapidly around us. And if we look at the world around us, food is more abundant and plentiful than ever before. Yet what we eat is the greatest risk to human health, and how we produce food is one of our greatest planetary challenges. Now, we all know the big issues that businesses like ours face, obesity, climate change, and feeding a growing middle class. Yet, at the same time, people have never been so passionate, so involved, or so opinionated about food as they are today. And we see preferences changing all around the world, from Europe to China. We see a small group, but emerging group, of people who aspire to lead sustainable and healthy lifestyles. And with it, their expectations of us as a business are changing. Food can impact our reputation in an instant, and that's something that we've had to learn the hard way. So, we're reinventing ourselves. We're connecting health to the sustainability agenda because we see these as two sides of the same coin. If resources are scarce now, and they will be in the future, we should channel our efforts into producing food that's ecological and also enhances the health of people who eat it. So, while we're still just at the beginning of this journey, I want to share with you a few examples of what we're doing. The reason why we've been asked to speak today is because IKEA now sources only certified seafood. So let's start with what that has meant to us. Herring, salmon, crayfish, prawn, these are all distinctively Swedish and have always been items on our menu. The decision to source certified seafood was a fairly simple one for us to make. We can either source from fisheries that have reached their ecological limits, or we can source from fisheries that can replace their fish stocks. And if our fisheries are under pressure, then farming fish is a great way to relieve it. But if we decide to do that, then we have to be sure that that's also done responsibly. So certification for us was a must-do, and we really think it's a must-do for all of our businesses. Now, our story goes back to 2004, where we were at the salmon dialogues that called for a standard to responsibly source salmon. And when the ASC standard was published in 2012, we immediately committed to sourcing only certified seafood by 2015. So it took us about 2 years to certify nearly 400 stores in 48 markets. And there's no doubt that without certification, we wouldn't have achieved this kind of scale in such a short time frame. It meant that we could act decisively and give our suppliers a reason to invest and also move quickly with us. And by working upstream in our supply chain, we've helped to encourage fisheries into the certification process, like perch from Russia, like vendors from Finland. And we're now partnering with the MSC to certify crayfish fisheries in China over the next few years, which we're really excited about. So today, we sell 23 different species of fish that are responsibly sourced by the MSC and ASC, and we're really proud of the variety that we can offer. So we certify because we believe it gives us credibility and builds trust with our customers. Now, it may surprise you to hear that IKEA doesn't actually normally co-brand. So, for example, we don't use the FSC label on our furniture, but it's different with food. Food is much more personal, and as you saw before on the video, people really want to be able to keep eating fish. So it's really critical that you put the MSC and ASC label up front where people can see it, such as on your packaging or on our menu boards where we have done. Awareness always precedes trust, right? And before we made our seafood announcement last year, we did some research which showed us that our customers don't generally know we sell certified food. So our certified seafood commitment and achievement was an opportunity for us, not just to say that we mean it when we say we want to become more sustainable, but also to increase awareness of certified food that we sell at IKEA. And we were pretty thrilled with the coverage of our announcement in the media. We had 170 positive articles in just 2 days. We held events also all around the world to help awareness about the ASC, MSC, our partnership with WWF, and also what certification should mean to our customers. And we've also started a project this year which will help us understand the role of certification in building trust. And we'd like to think that through these activities, we'll see awareness improve and trust evolve. But ultimately, what we want to do is create sustainable growth. We want to sell more sustainable products, and we've even set ourselves targets to do this. And I think that we'd all agree, it's not enough to simply say something's more sustainable. Our customers see the world in a far more integrated way. So we have to look at the total package and try and hit on all the dimensions that matter to customers. Food also has to look appealing. It also has to be delicious. Increasingly, it needs to be healthy. It needs to be safe to eat. And all of these at a price that's affordable. So we use a concept called democratic design in our product development. And when we bring all of these things together, we call it democratic, because it's good food that's made available to everyone and not just a luxury for the few. So let's take a look at how we've used it. Now, being a home furnishing company, it's kind of surprising that meatballs are one of our best known products. But we sell over 1 billion of these each year. Now, meat is a fantastic source of protein, much more affordable today than it was 50 years ago, which is a really good thing. But in the West, we consume too much of it. There are environmental challenges, which we all know well, and we have fantastic opportunities to improve the impacts of farming. But we decided we could go a long way to meeting these challenges by helping our customers eat less meat. So we made the veggie balls, now available in every country globally. They're made of vegetables like chickpeas and green peas and kale and carrots. They use the ugly vegetables and emit 30 times less greenhouse gas emissions than our meatballs and use 15 times less land. And it's packed full of nutrients, contains half the calories of our meatballs and only a fraction of the fat. Now, they're more expensive to produce, but we decided to sell it for less to give our customers more reason to buy it. And people love it. It appeals to a new wave of flexitarians, pescatarians, vegetarians, and vegans. It's been the most successful IKEA product launch in the past 10 years, and we've reached almost 300 million people in the media. 90% of the press was very positive, and the other 10% was just positive. It's shown us that when you tap into their values and aspirations, people will really embrace it. And that's what we're trying to do. Create people and planet positive eating with delicious products like these that are healthy, affordable, and ecological. So creating a better everyday life is not just about the food sold in our stores, it's also about life at home. And IKEA wants to create a movement for sustainable living. And we've learned that there's no place like home to collaborate with customers. I think as consumers, we're aware of the problems, but we often feel powerless to do anything about them. So IKEA is moving from an age of large-scale advertising and into an age of addressing individual needs by empowering people to find the solutions and take the action for themselves. So, what are we doing? We've recruited ambassadors in different countries and given them a challenge for sustainable living, and then we've armed them with the products and the know-how so that they can achieve it themselves. And we've been posing challenges on a variety of topics, and here are a couple of the food-related ones. What if people ate less meat and more vegetables? Alexandra here is Swedish. Initially, she was very skeptical about eating less meat, but now, armed with a cookbook with vegetarian recipes, every second meal she cooks at home is vegetarian. What if people cooked more at home. Jamie from the UK lost 15 pounds in just 7 weeks by cooking at home for himself. And what if people reduce food waste? In Poland, people are challenging themselves to halve their food waste with some helpful tips and some IKEA storage containers. And this is just to illustrate, these two bananas are the same age, but one of them have been kept in an IKEA container. So there's your proof. It just goes to show you that if you enable a sustainable learning experience, people can learn how it benefits them personally. And we use that insight to unlock how we can create more sustainable living for people. So, by putting health and sustainability at the heart of our business model and taking bold leadership on the issues that matter, by creating delicious, healthy, affordable and sustainable products and working with customers to help them find the answers, we can create a better everyday life for the many people. And what could be more important than that?
Okay, good morning. Great talks there this morning to kick us off. My name is Ed Gillespie. I'm co-founder of Futerra. I started life actually as a fisheries biologist. Realized I was going to spend my whole career saying, if you don't stop catching all the fish, there won't be any fish. But that's why we're all here today. And now I run a communications agency. And I'm going to spend 15 minutes before we move on to the moderated panel, just sharing some of our experiences from our work at Futerra around how we generate customer demand and trust. So we are a mission-driven change agency. I founded Futerra 15 years ago. We used to joke when we first started working in sustainability, it was a bit like wetting yourself whilst wearing a dark suit. No one noticed, but it gave you a warm feeling inside. Now we say that sustainability is like teenage sex. Everyone says they're doing it. Very few people actually are. And those that are doing it quite badly. These are old jokes, but I'm an environmentalist, so I recycle them over and over again. Our mission is to make sustainability so desirable it becomes normal. And that's the idea that people will run towards positive, aspirational, engaging visions of an attainable future with more energy and stamina than they will run away from threats of doom and gloom and Armageddon. And we believe that sustainability is really changing. It's really evolving. It's not from where you spend money to managing your past impact to being less bad or being the right thing to do or somehow philanthropic. Actually, where we're moving to, this is how you make money. This is how you create future opportunity, how you do more good. And it's the smart thing to do. And it's really $1 billion opportunity. And that's what I think is interesting in terms of this alignment of sustainability with commerciality. We are a change agency in the fact that we combine logic of business strategy with the creative magic to bring those ideas to life. And the whole point of this is to persuade people in a more compelling fashion. We are a consultancy, of course, so we have a whole complicated theory of change, which you can see on our website. I won't go into this in detail now, but suffice to say, it starts with a powerful vision. And it's really lovely hearing IKEA's vision and talking about that purpose-led type of business, because it's not about knowing where you're going, it's about knowing where you also have to go. Where you must go if you are going to be genuinely sustainable. 10 years ago, our clients used to come to us and say, what should our sustainability strategy be in the context of our business? Now that has completely flipped in the current context. Now, what we're seeing is people saying, what should our business strategy be in the context of sustainability? And that's why certification programs like MSC and ASC are so important, because they're aligning business imperative with what has to be done environmentally and sustainably. And we all know we've had kind of big scandals in recent years, the horse meat scandal of a couple of years ago, where we all found out we weren't actually eating beef lasagna, we were actually eating slightly horsey lasagna. And this created a huge problem in terms of consumer trust. You know, as the ramifications of that went around, you know, you weren't just eating the wrong lasagna, you were eating the wrong species, which seems to be a rather big mistake in the context of food. And Our supply chains are increasingly complicated, and ignorance is no longer an answer. You can't just say we didn't know. Sorry, if you're not a Star Wars fan, this is an incest joke. It's always good to kick off the morning with a joke along those lines. But essentially, not knowing is not an excuse. We can't turn around now. Our customers will expect us to be doing the right thing by them. And we've also seen other kind of campaigns. NGOs have actually focused on when businesses have been in denial of things that are happening in their supply chain. So this is where Nestle came into some flack because of their procurement of palm oil, in terms of deforestation in Indonesia and Malaysia. And as the American Senator Michael Enzi says, if you're not at the table, you're on the menu. You really got to be careful, because in an age of radical transparency and increasing scrutiny, people will find out. We've seen this in the Panama Papers. We're seeing it in every aspect of our lives and businesses. You really have to make sure that your own house is in order, or it will come back to bite you on the backside. So at the same time, this is an enormous moment of quite exciting opportunity, because actually there's all sorts of disruption coming through. Even Coca-Cola Company has been looking at these type of issues. So, we're realizing that it's not just about the functional benefit of the products we sell, it's about the emotional benefit, but also the social and cultural significance. What does our purchasing behavior and the things we buy say about us and our relationship with each other and the wider world? How do we have active ethical purchasing, which helps to shape the future we want to see? And we're seeing this huge growth in aspirationals. These type of people who want to do the right thing. They still want to have the products that they're familiar with buying, but they want them to be delivered in a responsible fashion. And we've done a lot of work with large retailers around the world, particularly in the UK. But what we found is when we've surveyed their customers, people have an expectation. They think green is normal. They think this ethical stuff is normal. It's no longer sort of cliquey, hair shirt, slightly odd type of behavior. And they expect to be greener in the future. And this goes right across all demographics, young, old, different gender mixes, ethnic mixes. And we also know that there's a fantastic business case. It doesn't matter what certification you're looking at, whether it's MSC, ASC, Fair Trade, FSC, and we've worked with most of them over the years, but you're seeing that actually these certifications build market share. They build customer loyalty. They establish a sense of trust. People will come back and they will keep on buying, even in times of economic constraint. One of the fascinating things during this period of austerity in Europe is the fact that fair trade sales have continued to grow. People haven't ditched the certified goods they buy when economic times have been tough. And that's largely because when we start to buy an ethical or certified product, an element of psychological, symbolic self-completion occurs. You can't take a step away from that because it says something about you. You're saying, am I telling myself I no longer care about the issues that I did previously? And so it's very interesting. It tends to be a one-way shift. We talk about this. We wrote a report a couple of years ago called Selling Sustainability. And you have to look at the value of what sustainability is bringing to your customer. Whether it's functional value, whether it's emotional value, or whether it's social value. And again, I won't go into that in detail here. You can download this report for free from the Futerra website if you're interested. But what I wanted to focus on, just for the few minutes I have briefly, is the fact that, this is about the best business in the world. Our US CEO, Freya Williams, recently wrote a book called Green Giants. And in this book, she explores the billion-dollar business opportunity that is sustainability. And she starts off with a burrito. Now, what has a burrito got to do with a billion-dollar business opportunity? And I am saying $1 billion. It's billions with a B here. And the reason is because the burrito is beating the burger in the States. And it's a fascinating trend. You look at how in the last 5 years, Chipotle, the Mexican burrito chain, is now worth 4 times as much as Burger King in 5 short years. Now, that is largely, maybe they're just a tastier product, but it's also largely because they've gone onto the front foot with responsible and ethical sourcing. And they're telling their customers about it, and they're creating a powerful narrative and story about why their product is better, tastier, and better for the wider world. And if you look at all of these green giants that Freya focuses on in her book, they're creating over $100 billion of additional revenue. $100 billion. And they're doing it because they're focusing on sustainability at the core of those new products and services that they're providing. And that's connecting with the customer. And this is enormous. And even if on the stock market, if you look at the value of these businesses on the stock exchanges, they have grown at a far, far higher rate than their comparable competitors. So this is doing well by their customers. It's also doing well by their investors. So if you'd invested $1,000 over 5 years, in the standard competitors, you've got about a $2,000 return. You get about nearly $3,500 if you go the other way. What they all have in common, and you could ask yourself the checklist of these things within your own businesses, often they have an iconoclastic leader, they're focusing on disruptive innovation, new products and different services in existing markets. They have this bigger than self purpose. They are building this stuff in and not just bolting it on. They're actually looking at a root and branch reform of their organizations. They're communicating really well with mainstream customers to make this feel normal. And they're establishing new partnerships, new behavioral contracts. And I'll come back onto that in a moment. We've done a lot of work in this sort of certified world. We work with Mondelez, one of the world's biggest coffee producers. And they came to us and they said, we have a problem. We want to reconnect our coffee buyers, our coffee drinkers with our coffee producers. And we created this whole plan for them to create 1 million coffee entrepreneurs of sustainable coffee farming throughout Latin America. It's now going on pack, and it makes a very strong emotional connection between those two different ends of the supply chain. And I think this is where it's really changing. We want people not just to be consumers, to be stakeholders in helping us to buy and build a better world. Similarly, another project we did with Danone, where we're looking at their baby food production and the kind of higher standards that they're using in terms of the farming of the produce which goes into the mouths of our youngest and tenderest little beings. And this idea of growing healthy, again, is about growing healthy agriculture, growing healthy produce to grow healthy children. And of course, we've seen all sorts of communications around MSC and ASC and sustainable fishing. And I think this has to get bigger as well, because there's a customer expectation this is going to happen, but people need to be reminded about the good that is being done in their name and on their behalf. And if you look at, sorry about the formatting on this slide, I don't quite know what's happened there. So yeah. We'll join the letters. I'm sure you can work out what it means. This is from the World Economic Forum. There are so many different reasons why you would go for sustainability. Partly, it's about customer preference. As I said, building loyalty, building engagement. It's also, obviously, and fundamentally in the businesses that we're all involved in, about supply chain resilience. How do you keep getting the products you need when you need them at the right price? But it's also about additional revenue opportunities, new markets, and actually efficiency and productivity right through that whole supply chain. So there's so many different good justifications for going down this route. But I want to finish by just kind of concluding on the purpose point here. I think we're in a very interesting time where the purpose of business is shifting again. And the answer to this question is, the clue is it's not shareholder value. As this cartoon says, yes, the planet got destroyed, but for a beautiful moment in time, we created a lot of value for shareholders. And what you're seeing, I'm very proud to say Futerra is one of the founding benefit corporations in the UK, but companies actually saying and reconnecting, and what a benefit corporation allows you to be is to rewrite your articles of association, to say your purpose is actually to deliver social and environmental benefit. And clearly, certified products have that very ethos at their core. They are about delivering social and environmental benefit beyond yourself. And ironically, this is what business was supposed to be founded for in the first place. Even the word company comes from the Latin companio, to break bread together, to come together to do things that we can't do individually. And that is the enormous inspirational power of certified products like MSC and ASC goods that we're all engaged in here today. So the story is shifting. Dogs sniff bottoms, we tell stories. They are the way we make sense of our relationships with each other and the wider world around us. And I think the story of what we're trying to do here is changing. And stories are vitally important. They are the library of humanity. They are the most powerful organizing framework we've ever developed. And if you look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, we have these ideas of basic physiological needs, these ideas around identity and belonging, and then the self-actualization where you sublimate to become the Buddha at the top of the triangle. Of course, we know the basic needs are all about Wi-Fi these days, but it is about storytelling. And, there's huge mistakes historically I mean, this is my classic greenwash advert of all time. Buy a low energy light bulb and win air miles. Sort of cognitive dissonance. And so we have a very confused customer base. You know, people want to do the right thing, but they are limited by the finite pool of worry and the fog of concern that they hold in their heads. And it's our job, if you like, to help them navigate through that complexity, to make the decisions simple and to make the decisions sticky, so people keep coming back to do the right thing. And this is why it seems ironic. I know when we're here in a session which is called Consumer Demand and Insight, we need to kill the word consumer. Because the word consumer primes us to behave in the wrong way. The word consumer primes us psychologically to behave individualistically, in our self-interest, in a selfish way, and it makes us obsessed with our rights. Actually, we need to be referring to our customers as almost as more of a citizenship type of relationship, active stakeholders in the change that we are trying to deliver. Because when you frame people as citizens and stakeholders, then they become more collective. They may become more altruistic. They become more interested in their responsibilities rather than just their rights. And this sounds subtle, but actually the power of language is incredibly instructive. So one of my challenges to you might be, we need to kill the word consumer, because the market cannot be allowed to sort this by itself. As Amory Lovin said, the market makes a good servant, a bad master, and a terrifying God. And what we're essentially doing with these types of certification interventions is changing the market and bending it for good to make it serve us. Can you fix the economy and the environment at the same time? Well, if you think you can't, you've got a very tiny mind. This is the dynamic, innovative challenge of our generation, not just in fisheries and seafood, but in energy and in climate change, in biodiversity loss, in all of these different areas. And the way that we solve this through the creative storytelling that we're undertaking is to be interesting, to capture people's imagination and their attention, to be visible, to be powerful, to tell the truth, to be transparent, to expose ourselves to the necessary scrutiny, to not try and hide things under the radar, and to live that truth. You know, and that's why certification is a shortcut to so many of these different elements, which are the fundamental components of effective storytelling. It is a challenging time in the world. There is no doubt about it. We have lots of interconnected and interdependent challenges. But I think out of this extraordinary combination of different emergencies comes an extraordinary emergence of a different type of consciousness amongst both customers and citizens and businesses alike. And that combination and that unification is actually what is going to help us deliver the future we need. So that's all I want to say on that bit in terms of kicking us off. We've got to have a small pause for applause, if you like. But now let's get the more interesting people up on the stage. If I can invite our illustrious panelists to come and join me. So I have Agathe Grossmith from Carrefour. You can clap them onto the stage. Let's do it X Factor style. We have Rupert Howes, obviously CEO of the MSC. We have Carolyn Meledo from Hilton Group. We have Chris Nidders coming up over here. If we could try and do it boy, girl as well. And I need to swap microphones. Hang on.
And a 30% decarbonisation with your veggie option. Incredible. Yeah, they're not on.
There we go. Okay, fantastic. Sorry about the slight technical handover delay. So we have our fantastic panelists. I'm going to kick off with a few questions for them. Obviously around this management of consumer and customer demand. I'm going to keep saying the word consumer now, even though I said we should kill it as a term. And then we're going to throw it open to the audience. So do start kind of ruminating and mulling on the questions you would like to ask as we go through. But let me kick off. Let's start from this end of the group with my nearest Carolyn just to my right. So Carolyn, what's the hardest lesson you've learned in the Hilton Group about building and sustaining customer trust?
Yeah, thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. I guess I must actually quite support your suggestion of clear consumers' trust, not trust, consumers as a word, because this is indeed the lesson we learned. When we talk about consumer trust, we need to distinguish between three different things. There is what consumers want, for example, their favorite fish. There is what consumers expect, which is responsible sourcing from a brand they trust. And then there is what they won't miss if you take it away. And that's actually the journey that we've been on with shark fin specifically, which is where we started our sustainable seafood journey. So back in 2012, we were under some pressure around serving still shark fin soup, especially in Asia. As you know, this is a delicacy, especially in Asia, and you would expect that if you organize a corporate event or a wedding banquet, you would find shark fin soup at a Hilton, because this is, prestigious brand, prestigious dish. And then we had actually to grapple with our consumer direct demands of having that dish on the menu, but also these other voices about the expectation from having a responsible sourcing and obviously having shark being an endangered species. So what we did in 2012 is that we withdrew shark fin from our menus, still keeping it available upon demand, so that we were still listening to our customers' direct demands. But over time, we grew confidence to also hear the citizen, not just the direct customer. And so that's why we withdrew it from our menus. We saw commercial impact that was not too bad, actually, which boosted us to actually take the bold step to take it out globally and consistently. We were the first hotel group to have the shark fin ban across all of our menus. We even updated our brand standards to say that our hotels cannot serve endangered species on their menu. And so that has really helped us kickstart our journey on sustainable seafood. In 2015, we established a global partnership with WWF, helping us on developing our global sustainable seafood strategy. And just last year as well, we became the first hotel group to have the largest number of hotels serving MSC certified species, in particular cods across 41 hotels in Europe, so UK, Netherlands, and Belgium. And we were the first hotel in all of Asia to be MSC certified to the chain of custody. So I guess this is what we've learned, that customer demand or customer trust is very versatile. And that's why I fully support your perspective on not talking about the consumer, but talking about the citizen. We have different demands, and that's how we need to keep the pulse on what the consumer's demands are. And sometimes we need to free ride on what they won't miss.
Yeah, it's what the founder of the BBC famously said many years ago. He said, the job of the BBC is not to give the people what they want, it's to give them what they don't yet know they want. So it's to kind of lead that agenda. Agathe, and from the Carrefour perspective, what happens when consumer trust starts to erode? Have you had any examples or stories or experiences where you've lost your customers' trust and it's been a challenge to rebuild it?
Well, I can maybe share an example on seafood regarding not a diminution of consumer trust, but no knowledge from the consumer on one topic. And for instance, on MSC, when we had an action plan on sustainable seafood, and we tend to deploy it in several countries. And in some countries, we face that there is no demand, there is no knowledge about, for instance, the MSC or more globally on sustainable seafood. Then this is very frustrating. We have then a challenge, and we now understand that we live at the same pace as the society. So when there is a movement in the society, we are able to act. So what we started in the countries where we develop sustainable seafood is to have a local consultation with the relevant stakeholders. So the label, when the label is around, the scientists, the NGOs, our clients, of course, and our suppliers. And when we have, when we start this dialogue, we start to find collective solutions. And I was mentioning countries where it was difficult. We were very frustrating because we didn't know what can we do if our suppliers doesn't know the standard, if our clients are not aware.
And now we see that in Italy, for instance, where we didn't have any MSC certified products maybe 1 year ago, now there is an MSC office in Italy. And we see that the topic is being discussed thanks to this local debate. And the local operational people, they found a solution. And now we have some products. We plan to have 15 more by the end of the year. And this is the way forward. So really, it's not from only global decisions. It's also on local debates. As you mentioned, citizenship is local and collective. So consultation and collective action would be the first entry for us. But I want to add something. It's not enough. It's a good start. But what makes it relevant and interesting for our consumer, because at one point they think something, but they could change in the time, is whether this subject is material for our activity. So what is material for Carrefour? We sell food products, good products, and quality products. Can we do this on the long term? The question is, can the MSC help us do this? So can the MSC protect the ecosystem to ensure that we are able to propose that diverse, good, and biodiversity offer for seafood in our stores? If yes, then we will gain consumer trust on the long term. So it's not just specific on one moment. Is this material for our business? Can the MSC, can the certification help us doing well our job? And yes, the MSC certification help us do well our job.
Fantastic, thank you. I'm going to come to the gentleman in a moment, but let's hear from all the ladies first. Jacqui, you talked about a couple of things. I mean, firstly, you said I think it's interesting the way that you choose to kind of partner logo with MSC, but not necessarily FSC. So that's quite an interesting thing in terms of sort of building those relationships. But to what extent do you think sometimes you have to go to a sort of a slightly darker place in order to bounce back onto the front foot? I mean, I know there were some sort of challenges around horse meat scandal with IKEA, but did that play any role in then regalvanizing you and your team to actually really move things forward further and faster?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that the horse meat scandal was really a turning point for us in a very big way. It helped us realize that we were a little bit out of touch with the outside world, I think, as I mentioned. And what is it? Mark Twain says something like, a lie can get halfway around the world before the truth can even get its pants on. Well, I don't think. I think that also applies to bad news and gossip and mistakes. And so that was the media coverage that came out of that was probably one of the most negative events that we've had as a business. So but in many respects, I think leadership is really judged from how you respond in those situations. And of course, we did all the right things in our supply chain. We tried to nail it down. We tried to get transparency. We looked at long-term relationships with our suppliers. We DNA tested. So we absolutely battened that down. But then I also think that certification like seafood certification, like the MSC, for example, gives us that added assurance. So the more that we can reach out and be able to use certification in a way that gives us that credibility, that's also another way that we can respond to that situation. Yeah. Luckily, I think for us that we're part of a bigger company and we have a bigger purpose, the better life for the everyday for the many people. And I think that in some respects that sheltered us a little bit from, even worse negativity.
Yeah, no, it's fantastic. As I say, I think that's the thing is like, how do you get that additional assurance? I mean, Rupert, that leaves us seamlessly on to, what are the real benefits of certification, do you think, both for sort of seafood producing businesses and the retailers themselves, in a sort of pithy encapsulation? What do you think of those key benefits are?
The pithy encapsulation is the challenging thing. I'm just listening to the debate, the updates, all the answers are there. Certification delivers real benefits for many different people along the supply chain. I think the major benefit from an MSC perspective is we have a growing evidence base that it is driving real change in the way our oceans are being fished. MSC is committed to producing a global impacts report every year, and our latest analysis demonstrates certified fisheries are amongst the best performing fisheries in the world, more stable biomass, continually improving those fisheries through the implementation of action plans. And ultimately, that's where the stewardship model came in, when Unilever and WWF came together nearly 20 years ago to found the MSC. Other benefits we've heard, it's engaging with consumers, it's building trust, it's giving assurance to capital markets. I was in Western Australia just before Christmas at the industry conference, and was fascinated to learn that the Western Australian government has put all of their 47 fisheries into the MSC program. They're funding pre-assessments, work to improve those fisheries. And they did some independent analysis that demonstrated MSC certified fisheries were getting a lower cost of capital. So it's trust with consumers, it's assurance of supply chains, it's building confidence with other stakeholders within that business, and perhaps it's contributing to sustainable shareholder value.
Yeah, I mean, and Chris, on that note, I mean, we saw in the kind of the consumer insights that Nicholas was sharing with us earlier, someone, I think it was an Australian customer referring to sort of shonky fishermen. Obviously, you don't have fishermen in the Aquaculture Stewardship Council, but do you think customers expect aquaculture is already run slightly better than perhaps sort of piratical fishermen at sea? And in the absence of that sort of customer demand, what are the additional benefits of an ASC certification for your partners?
I think the perceptions, differ. Clearly, for many people, fish is something iconic and caught by iconic fishermen. But the reality really is that the more fish that's consumed is actually from farm globally.
Yeah.
So it's a trend that's not going to go away, and really it's a story that we all have to live with in terms of in the marketplace. But I think clearly for me, the benefits, the ultimate benefits for what we do, and it's anchored both in the MSCs and our visions of working with producers to make things better. And by doing that, we can create efficiencies, and that'll bring value, and that will lower ultimately the costs of production as well. So I think there are benefits that come throughout that supply chain, and by being able to communicate it into the marketplace, then you help spread that value and create the incentives that you want to see.
Yeah. So, and perhaps in the visible use of a certification, Jacqui's already said that IKEA are going to go on the front foot. To what extent are Hilton and Carrefour actually going to use the MSC certification visibly and publicly? Is it really a below the radar assurance, or are you going to be using it overtly to engage your customers? Perhaps Agathe first.
I can give an example. When we started having a sustainable seafood policy, at that time the MSC did not exist. So I was not there at Carrefour, I must say. And Carrefour tried to set up its own requirements to ensure sustainable seafood with its own brand. That was tough. That was very difficult. And because the MSC gathered, we had benefit from the collective knowledge that is inside the MSC, because this is where is the multi-stakeholder discussion from the NGOs, scientists, and companies. So now we have set up a standard, and we can use this to communicate, of course, to consumers. But I think what is very interesting is that it also sets the standard for all our policy, because now we see those standards as a good challenge to the suppliers that are not certified. So now we've built a wider policy. We've, of course, developed those sustainable certified products, but also we now look at the complete supplies and we say, okay, which are very far from certification, which species we sell are too far from being certified and will never be because the stocks are too low. These we stop. So in France, there are around 10 species that we stopped selling. So it shows the gap. Then maybe there are other species that are not so far, but we should improve them. So I think what is interesting with setting those standards, it gives the vision, and it's interesting if we use it as a tool in a global policy. Maybe some species will not be certified, but at least we know the path and we know where's the gap. But to go further on this, if the certification is relevant and efficient, then it must lead to a global market transformation, because we can't afford to have on our shelves maybe a few products that are certified and sell to our clients. These are good products, but those are endangered species. This doesn't work. It won't be consistent, and it would completely undermine the confidence of consumers. But what is true is also true for the rest of the markets. So now for our brand, we look how we can improve. For instance, we have a Carrefour quality lines. It's a brand for aquaculture. We design the specification at production level. We have organized non-GM food for those species. Also, no antibiotics in the production. These are good actions, but now we look at the ASC and we see, okay, there are also good things in the ASC that challenge us. So this is a good thing. Now, let's look at the wider topic. When we stop selling some species, deep sea fishes, for instance, what happens if other competitors do sell those products?
Yeah.
We have a problem because we don't solve the problem, in fact. And it confuses consumers because they find the species in one store and not in other. So where is the truth around here?
Yeah.
So what we want to do with certification is use it as a market transformation. So when we decide, for instance, to have MSC certification for 50 products in France, we believe it can positively influence the rest of the market. So we say to our suppliers, hi guys, we have 15 of those products. This will be our target that was for 2015. Let's discuss that. We also say to our competitors, because we of course look what each company does, this is a topic we want to push forward. And same with our species. We are efficient when we have a collective action. So this is where I believe the certification can help.
Excellent. And we're going to come to the audience in a minute, so we're thinking about your questions. I mean, it's always interesting, that transition as well, isn't it, when not all of your lines might be certified. And I know we've had this dilemma. We were to talk about this in the coffee industry, you know, where people were talking about fair trade organic coffee, and then, you know, a big coffee producer would say, and they'd make a special brand and say, this is our fair trade organic coffee, which doesn't shaft the grower and the environment, but, you know, by implication, all the rest of our coffee does. And, you know, you can actually sort of create a sort of problematic position there. But, I mean, Caroline, to what extent are you using the certification publicly with customers?
Yeah, well, I guess that goes back to also the question of trust of customers, right? When you think about big brands like IKEA, Carrefour, Hilton, when you buy from these brands, you actually buy in these brands. Yeah. And what you buy into is into the trust and confidence that those brands will act on your behalf in the way you expect them to do. So that's all based on expectations that you do the right thing at the right time all the time. And so in order to do that, how do you confirm to your customers that you are doing the right thing all the time? That's where certifications just come very handy, because this is a seal of approval. It's a third-party, independent, scientific expert seal of approval on the quality of management and whatever it may be. So for example, at Hilton, we are certified to ISO 9001, so quality, 14001 environments, and 50,001 energy. We're the only hotel chain in the world to have those 3 certifications. This is all based on our environmental management. We have a platform that is applicable for each and every of our 4,600 hotels. Every single one of them has that certification. Now, whether you're an investor or a customer, that's kind of, you know, the shorthand proof that you're doing the right thing all the time, that you do manage all of your impacts properly. And you can't just walk each and every customer through each of your, you know, back of house or heart of house, as we call it, and showing all of our processes. This is something that we can show up front and say, well, you know, that's how we manage our hotels. So it's true for operations. And then obviously when we go into supply chain management, this is where with fish, this is also fantastic to have the ability to use the MSC certification and possibly soon the ASC certification, to show also our customers that we manage our fish procurement properly. And that's certainly having a big impact with the customers, also because they're not our customers, they're citizens. And so whether they have bought fish this morning in the supermarkets and then have our iconic fish and chips in one of our restaurants for lunch, there is also consistency in their experience with what they feel and what they will trust will be safe responsible fish.
Hmm.
And so in that sense, certifications are just a fantastic tool.
Ed, can I very,
Yes,
very
of
quickly,
course.
it's the point I feel very strongly about. I think the certification and labeling are two sides of the same coin. We need a credible, robust, science-based certification program to assess the fisheries, but the label is the key mechanism, along with the traceability, to communicate and educate consumers. And the message I took from all of your presentations this morning and our own research that will be issued in June is consumers care, aspirationals, whoever they are, I lose track with millennials and generations, they're all looking for this. They care. It says something about them. But you mentioned the fog. The use of the label and the education of consumers clears that fog and enables them to make an informed decision, an empowered decision very quickly.
And makes it easy and simple, which is everything that we could possibly want. Okay, let's open it up to our esteemed and experienced audience out here. Let's try and take the questions, perhaps a couple at a time. So we'll go down the front here and then over on the right. If you could just say very quickly who you are and try and keep the questions pithy, and then we'll get through more of them. So here comes the microphone. Yeah, well, let's pass the microphones over. We'll take them quickly. So, this gentleman here first.
Hello, this is Hans Yu from Grossmith Group. I want to ask one question that all of our presentation today is from the market demand perspective.
Yeah.
But how about the supply perspective? Have you ever considered that maybe some channels in the world telling that our price is every day the cheapest, but they request for more and more certification? Do you think this is a kind of sustainable? Yes, that's my question. Thank you.
Okay, so we have something on the supply perspective, and this gentleman here on the right.
Yeah, Maurice Brown, John, with the P&A in the Pacific. It was as much a correction as a question. And in Nick's presentation, the launch of Pacifical co-branded MSC John West in Australia was not 1 million cans. It was 105 million cans.
Wow.
I think that has got to be the biggest launch in MSC.
Well, that's a good thing, isn't it? 100 times more than we had. Okay, so let's take the question around the supply perspective then. You know, the stuff happening at the cheapest, and actually people demanding more certification but without any additional cost, which I assume is the main thrust of the question. This must be a Rupert question.
Why did I sit in the middle? It's a very good question, and it goes way beyond farmed fish or wild capture certification. I think this comes to the heart of the fact that we live in an unsustainable economy. We live in an imperfect economic system where the prices that we pay don't reflect the full and true costs of their production and consumption. So there's no easy answer. You're right, the demands on the supply chain are increasing. People want more attributes, they want certification, and this adds costs. And in reality, not everybody is prepared to pay those costs. However, I do feel that in a sort of global capitalistic society and economy that we operate in, ultimately, we do have to internalize those externalities. And I think ultimately, consumers will probably have to pay a little bit more. So there's no silver bullet or simple answer. I think costs will be internalized throughout the supply chain. Where possible, maybe consumers will pay more. Invite the rest of the panel to contribute. It's a tough one.
Agathe?
Yes, thank you for this question. I think indeed, I'm going back to what I was saying, the certification must look for market transformation. And we see on some other sustainability topic, because we work on other biodiversity issues, that sometimes we have part of the market that is certified, and then actors also propose non-certified products that are where we have no guarantee on sustainability. And this installs a double market. Oh, you want sustainable, this is sustainable. You have no specification, then there is the rest of the market. This is a very big problem because it doesn't change the issue. And what can we say to our clients, for instance, if we say, okay, we have a sustainable palm oil in our products, but in the end, deforestation due to palm oil continues. It remains a problem, a material issue for us. And also it installs a competition that is twisted. So really our target should be to influence the global markets where we operate. This is what we want to do. And we take decision for our sourcing, we expect to positively influence the rest of the market. But then I think also the certification role goes beyond only the products that are certified, because when the standards are set up, they do influence the rest of the market, even if some products are not certified. Maybe some products don't have to be certified, or will be, but maybe in a very far future. Maybe there are some priorities, but by setting up a standard, it enabled us to look at all the supply, and then I trust the people on the ground at local level to find the appropriate solutions. Because we see that in some markets, we have frozen food, fresh foods. For other markets, we even sell seafood products alive. Some other market, we have aquaculture. Some other market are really based on local fishing. All the answers to those specific markets are different. This is why we must rely on the people in each country to develop those solutions. And maybe there will be some different steps. If there is a small artisanal fishing activity in the country, maybe we'll look at what MSC is doing to inspire those people, but maybe they will not be certified yet. It's a path then we need to find, but I'm sure that those certifications, they do inspire local solutions.
Excellent, thank you.
Can I just add a little bit there?
Course,
I mean,
Jacqui.
I think absolutely, certification requires an investment. The fact is you have to invest up front a little bit. And
Are you saying these guys are expensive?
No, I'm not saying that they're expensive, but the fact that this process requires investment all along the supply chain. It's not just people right upstream at source, but it's us as well. We have to create chain of custody. We also have to, if you want to move quickly and early, you have to support your suppliers to do it. So there is an investment that's required to do that. Now we've been lucky because we've found ways to absorb that cost to some extent. And we hope over time that will create efficiencies in our supply chains and reduce it even further. But I think ultimately we have to think about not loading the cost onto the customer. Because we don't want to make these luxury items. Demand is so dependent on price that we all have to make sure that we try and do our best to make this an efficient process and keep the costs to a minimum.
No, I love what you were doing with the price differential on the vegetarian balls, because as you say, that provides a direct incentive. You've actually swallowed the additional cost of production in order to drive behaviour change, which is amazing. Okay, let's try and take a few more questions. So down the bottom here on the left, and in the middle here, and then on the right. Let's try and take three very quickly together.
Yes, my name is Stephen Adolf. I'm from Wageningen University. This is about consumer trust, and we have seen there is a lot of different certifications now on the market. This is a question for the companies. Do you see that is an undermining factor for the consumer trust, because many don't actually know what certain certification means, where it stands for, and that can be, even on the long run, a problem for certification as a whole. Do you recognize this problem, and do you have any ideas how you can solve it?
Okay, that's a good question. The gentleman in the middle here.
Yeah, I'm Dr. Vartak. I work on DNA barcoding of crabs in India. My question is to all. There is one problem in certification, that most of the certification is given on the common names. For example, generally in label, if we talk about the hotel industry, the menu, it is common name, means crab, curry, or like that. So my work is beyond that. I feel there is a problem in the common names because there is a chances of adulteration in if you use common names. So do you feel that if we use species specific names in the menu, that will be the more accurate for such kind of certification programs? For example, sea bass, in crabs there are 10, 15 type of crabs available. So one is high price, one is low price. So if we become a species specific, then that will actually solve the problem, and that will give more trust to the customer.
Excellent question. Okay, and then lastly, over on the right there.
Thank you. My name is Guy Leyland. I'm from the West Australian Fishing Industry Council. Some of the fisheries we represent are the shark fisheries, who are contemplating entering into MSC assessment for certification. And a question to the lady from the Hilton group. In the event that those shark fisheries are certified and shark fins are indeed certified as well. Will the Hilton Group reconsider in terms of including them on their menu, or do you think shark fin has been so demonised that it's now beyond redemption?
Juicy questions. I like these. Okay, these are fantastic. So the first two, I guess, are both around consumer or customer confusion. You know, so the proliferation of multiple eco labels, which actually undermine that kind of swift shorthand question. And then we've got a question around the labeling of the actual fish itself, common names versus species specific. You know, my master's degree was on Dicentrarchus labrax. So shall we discuss that? So who would like to come back on that first? Proliferation of labels. Agathe.
Definitely. The provision of labels can install a form of confusion. It makes it difficult for our clients to understand what each logo means. But there are several solutions, I hope. One of them is campaigning, installing some commercial operations. This is what we do, for instance, in Belgium here. Also in other countries like France. We have some operations in store where we support the MSC certification and the ASC, and to explain what does it mean. And we don't do this alone. We do this, of course, with the labels, with NGOs like WWF, and we also do this with some of our competitors. So I think that when collectively we send those messages, we reach some kind of understanding with the consumers. Another way also to work on these issues is with the brands. I mentioned that we have Carrefour quality lines. This is a brand we use for fresh products like meats, like vegetables, but also for seafood. And for those specific range of products, we have direct relation with the fishermen or the producers. So this is where we install the relationship with the suppliers. And also, we when we mix those brands with the requirements of the standard, we also build some kind of confidence and a global message about maintaining biodiversity, ensuring that we can deliver good products on the long term. Yeah. So that would be the two answers. But yes, it's a good challenge, collective challenge.
Chris, do you want to comment on the kind of multiple label confusion, or actually the species specific stuff? Because obviously aquaculture, you can pretty much guarantee, hopefully you've got the right fish in the tank.
Yeah, certainly when you come back to the species question, I mean, I think the credibility of the certification program is very much on the integrity of the chain of custody that takes you from the fish on the plate all the way back to either the farm or the fishery from where it's produced from. So there's integrity in that chain. And I take the point that a species name might help define it better, but a species name on a menu for most people would be incomprehensible. So I really don't see that as a route to improving what that question was about. But in terms of competition of labels, then I think you know what's the most important test is the credibility, what underpins those labels. And that comes down to choices that individual businesses make around where they want to position their businesses. I think there are other tools that are being developed, notably GSSI, that looks to set some benchmarks in terms of defining what credibility means. But I think ultimately some competition is also good. Yeah. So you know, there are many facets to that question. You could write a thesis on it.
Yeah,
even.
Exactly. I would say we're almost out of time, so I'm going to ask each of the panelists in a moment, so you can be thinking about this, what you think is one key next step is in terms of transforming the whole sector. Because obviously Agathe's kind of alluded to the fact that, you know, you can't just choice edit and allow your competitors to carry on doing the same thing, you know. So what is the one key thing from each of your perspectives that would actually lead to an acceleration of the transformation of the whole seafood sector towards greater sustainability? But perhaps we just come back on the ethical shark fins from Western Australia. Would the Hilton Group change its position?
Well, I must say first, thank you. I'm delighted to hear that there is actually some fisheries that are looking at responsible and sustainable shark fin fishing, because the sector has suffered from pretty horrendous practices over time. So it's really wonderful, and I want to congratulate you on taking that journey. Our approach is to not serve endangered species, whatever the species, shark or other. So as long as a species is listed by scientists as being endangered, we will not buy it and serve it. That's it. So it's not about the shark, it's any endangered species. And we review and update the list of endangered species based on all the international lists that are relevant. We take advice from the experts in order to update our list, and we do update our list on a continuous basis. So let's see how the shark industry evolves. Let's see whether indeed, following new leadership, we can see more fisheries that have a more sustainable approach as well in terms of shark fishing that would still protect the species. But at this point in time, it's not about the shark, it's about the endangered species. And so let's see how it evolves.
Okay, great. All right, so Jacqui,
Okay.
one key next step.
One key next step. Okay, so top of my wish list would be that we have more fisheries and farms that are certified so that we have more seafood that we can choose to sell. But, and I'm going to add to that by saying that, you know, we've got fantastic commitments like what we're seeing in the salmon industry at the moment, which really is leading to market transformation, or I believe so at least. I hope no one contradicts me. I think it's really wonderful to see. But, you know, how can we bring more fisheries into certification? And linking to what I saw earlier and what we believe to be true, how do we as businesses create that demand? Let's all make some commitments here, and let's not just wait till, you know, 2020, 2025. Let's make some commitments here and now that we can actually create transformation tomorrow, because that's really what's going to lead to demand. Okay, so that was two.
Great. No, well, no, that's great. Creating demand, I think, is absolutely vital. Chris?
So to your Citizen Smith slide, and really to reinforce what's just been said, collective action and collaboration to go to scale to reach those farms and fisheries that we have not even begun to engage with.
Yeah, fantastic. Agathe.
I will add to the local discussions that I mentioned are very important. We want those debates to happen everywhere we operate, in Poland, in Romania. We see those topics being discussed, and this is the first step to have concrete actions. But what we also need to do is to remain very open to all the noises that are happening in the societies. The labels, this is the role of the label, continually improve. Otherwise, it cannot be the lead for sustainability. So any kind of topic that are put on the table, sharks is a good one, must be discussed, and the label must lead the way. So let's take all sustainable issues that comes up and increase the standard when it needs to be done. I think these are the two next step I would say.
Everyone's doing really well on doing one, aren't they? Rupert, you must have a list of about 20. So let's have your top one or two.
Top one or two. Well, as much as I'm a fan of credible certification and labelling for driving change, there is no silver bullet. Certification and labelling on its own, even with significant corporate commitments and leadership, which we're getting, will not be enough to shift an entire economic sector onto a more sustainable footing. So I think the key area as well, as all the things fellow panelists have said, is political leadership and public policy reform. And in our fisheries world, that means regional management organizations adopting harvest control rules, sort of creating the right enabling environment to enable more fisheries to achieve and maintain their certificates. So certification labeling, getting better. Public policy leadership, continued corporate leadership, which we're seeing in food service and retail. And let's not forget civil society and the NGOs, a critically important part. They strengthen the process, they raise awareness through their advocacy.
Fantastic. And last, but by no means least, Caroline.
That's actually, I'm glad you just mentioned that, because that was one of the two key points I wanted to mention, which is about also the action from our political leaders and the regulators, because we can see a number of commitments from the top leading companies, and it's an honor to be with Carrefour and IKEA here. But obviously there is a very, very, very long tail of other smaller players that in aggregate form the bulk of the industry. And leading companies like our brands will not change that. However, further down the line, and even in our very complex supply chains, we cannot make that happen, even with the best certifications in the world. For a real transformation, we do need that political action, as well as a wider education and awareness, and that joined also the aspects around civil society to better understand, maybe not all the Latin names, but at least what it means to do sustainable fishing with the different species. So I guess that would be the thing. And finally, it was the second point, right? Kind of links, yeah? Just which would be also leading by example. And by that, I mean just like beyond the usual suspects. And I mean, I want to applaud really the colleague in the room who is talking about shark fin. I mean, who would ever have thought that actually, yes, you can come forward and say that there is a sustainable way. In the hotel industry, this is unheard of at scale. To actually look at MSC certifications. So kind of beyond the usual suspects, the retailers have done a fantastic job over decades. But each and every one of us, whatever our industry, however small we are, we can be part of that smaller tail of the smaller buyers in terms of volumes possibly, or the smaller sellers. And we can all be the leaders that can drive that change.
Fantastic. So that seems to be the kind of cross-cutting theme. It's bold, courageous leadership across all sectors, whether it's from suppliers, fishers themselves, the retailers, and from the political context. Forgive me, I have taken an extra 5 minutes of your time, but I thought it was worthwhile just to get those last questions in and those final perspectives. So thank you very much for being an engaged audience today. I hope you've had and shared an enjoyable debate with us. Please put your hands together for our fantastic panelists and our previous speakers. And have a rest of your fabulous fishy day. Thank you.